Honestly, if you remove the romance from both of these stories, I'd probably still love them just as much. And the more I compared these two, the harder they became to compare. At first, these two stories couldn't be more different. One is quiet and full of heavy emotions. The other is bright, funny, and full of awkward romance. But after spending so much time with both series, I came to a realization that they aren't just two separate manga. They almost feel like two sides of the same coin, like they complete each other. One follows the people who are still learning how to open their hearts after getting hurt, while the other mostly shows how to keep the relationships healthy after the walls finally come down. I finished both, and yet I still can't get enough of them. So today I want to talk about the little things they have in common and the big differences that make each of them so special. The first thing I absolutely love about both series is the characters. And I don't just mean the main couple. Literally, everyone feels like an actual person instead of a character whose only job is to support the romance. They have their own friendships, their own insecurities, and sometimes even entire chapters that have nothing to do with the main couple. It honestly makes the storyline feel so much bigger. Now, I think it's mostly because in both stories, romance isn't the center of anyone's life. These characters don't suddenly get problems because they fall in love. They already have them. Like, Koyuki keeps her walls up after everything she went through in middle school. Minato has no idea that trying to help everyone around him can sometimes come across as pity. Suzuki worries about what other people think of her. And Tani, well, he's perfectly happy spending time on his own, even if it means missing out on a lot of the fun. The romance doesn't define who they are, it simply becomes one of the many things that help them grow. Another thing I absolutely love is how both stories treat friendship. A lot of romance anime treat friendship as nothing more than a stepping stone to romance. But these two stories didn't do that. If anything, they make friendship feel just as important as romance. In the Ramparts of Ice, the friendships are so precious that the characters are terrified of changing them. Koyun doesn't want to risk losing the comfort she's finally found, and because of that, Minato doesn't confess either. On the other hand, Yoda does confess, but Miki hesitates because their friendship means too much to her. Even when the feelings are obvious, nobody wants to take that final step because they're afraid that one wrong move could destroy something they genuinely treasure. And then there are Taira and Azuma. They're probably my favorite example of this, because before anything romantic ever happens, they simply become really good friends. Like we saw how he was the first person who made Azuma realize that it's okay to admit when someone has hurt her, instead of pretending everything is fine. And spoilers, later Azuma notices how much he overthinks, encourages him to open up to her, and helps him move past his past and insecurities. Though my favorite part is that, somewhere along the way, she falls in love with him as a person. And even though it's not really confirmed whether they actually end up together, I'm just happy that they still spend time together, even after going to different colleges. Other small things that I appreciate about both stories was how neither of them rushes their emotional moments, how characters don't suddenly change after one heartfelt conversation, and how relationships aren't built overnight. Every small interaction slowly adds up, making every bit of growth feel earned. Plus, the author really pays attention to the little moments. And even though The Ramparts of Ice is the more emotional of the two, I feel like both stories know exactly when to make us chuckle. And personally, that balance makes watching them unforgettable. Now let's flip the coin for a second and talk about the differences. I think the most obvious one is their overall tone. You don't even have to analyze them to notice it. Then I think the biggest one is how they approach romance itself. Here, romance is almost like the reward at the end of the journey. Before anyone can even think about dating, they first have to learn how to trust people again, communicate honestly, and slowly let their walls come down. That's why, even after a whole season, we don't have a single official couple. And even in what's coming next, the story doesn't rush things just because the feelings are there. They still have some misunderstandings to clear up, fears to overcome, and friendships to protect. Only after all of that do the characters finally become ready to accept their feelings. And you and I are polar opposites. The confession happens much earlier. So instead of the story ending there, we get to watch what comes after. The awkward dates, the jealousy, the overthinking, and the little moments where they're trying their best to understand each other while also figuring themselves out. And you might not know this, but Agasawa actually wrote The Ramparts of Ice first, and after it ended, she almost immediately started You and I Are Polar Opposites. That's why I feel like these two stories complete each other. The first first is about learning to let people into your life, the second is about what happens after you do. Anyways, the other noticeable difference for me is the kind of obstacles the characters have to face. In the Ramparts of Ice, the characters definitely struggle with their own thoughts and insecurities, but they're also mostly challenged by the people around them. Not everyone is kind and not everyone understands them. Sometimes it's an old bully, sometimes it's a classmate creating unnecessary misunderstandings, sometimes it's someone crossing boundaries without even realizing it. And because of that, their world feels a little harsher. It reminds us that growing up isn't just about changing yourself. Sometimes it's also about learning how to deal with difficult people, and honestly, I found that incredibly realistic. And as for you and I are polar opposites, it takes a completely different approach. That's not to say everyone is perfect. Of course, there are awkward classmates, embarrassing moments, and social pressure. But very rarely does the story introduce someone who makes life harder for the characters. Instead, the characters become their own obstacles. Like Tani, who sometimes struggles to explain what he's feeling because putting emotions into words doesn't come naturally to him.
Hey, Tiny, if there's something you want to say, then spill it.
Nishi struggles in a similar way. She's not afraid of people. She's just afraid to open herself up. Then there's Tyra. Nobody is telling him he isn't good enough. He's the one convincing himself of that. Lastly, one comparison I couldn't stop thinking about was the introverts and extroverts. Both Koyun and Tani seem pretty similar. They're both quiet, they both enjoy spending time alone, and neither likes unnecessary attention. But the thing is, they're quiet for completely different reasons. Koyun keeps people at a distance because she's afraid of getting hurt. Tani, though, is different. He's not avoiding people. He's not scared of them. He simply enjoys his own company. Usually, quiet characters are written as if they're only quiet because something bad happened to them, but Tani proves that sometimes people are just quiet. They're comfortable that way. So I really like that these two stories show both sides of being an introvert. Then it's the same with extroverts. At first glance, Minato and Suzuki are both outgoing, friendly people. But again, they couldn't be more different. Minato reaches out to people because he wants to help, as he kind of has that savior complex. However, Suzuki reaches out because she wants everyone around her to feel comfortable, as she worries about what other people think of her. On the surface, they're both just kind people, but the reasons behind that kindness are completely different. It's such a small difference, yet I feel like it changes everything. And that's probably my favorite thing about Agasawa's writing. And now I'm just waiting for whatever she writes next. Though I do want to say my sincere thanks to her for creating these stories, and to the studios for bringing them to life without making us wait forever. In the end, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of excited to make this video, so I'm pretty sure I missed a few things or made absolutely no sense at some point. So let me know what you think and whether you've read the manga or you're waiting for the anime. Alright, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to me. Take care of yourself and goodbye.
Maybe we could be okay, maybe you could be the change.